Hello, this is the next video in lesson 3 and it's going to cover email printing. One of the most accessible and simple methods for mobile print submission is via email. The way that Drivve Print handles this is via a subservice called the mailbox service. And what we're doing basically is we're checking a mailbox periodically for any messages. We're grabbing the attachments from that message, or we're grabbing the whole email itself. We're converting it, and then we're printing it based off predefined settings or based off which user it is. So what that means is you don't actually have to be on the same network. As long as your phone has 3G or 4G, you can send an email, and the Drivve application, if it's got internet access, will check that mailbox. It could be Gmail or your Exchange server or whatever. It'll grab the message and it'll print it out. So if you're on the other side of the world, you can print a job to your office back in Omaha, Nebraska, for instance. So I'm going to set up a mailbox here real quick, and it's a very simple process. I'm just going to add a mailbox here, and I have one called print to Matt at Drivve.com. I can select a target, so I can send it either to one of these connectors. We'll set those up in another video. I can set it to a direct printer here, or I can send it to my queue. And so what that means is it's going to send that job to that target after it converts it. So if I set it to front office printer, that means it's just going to spit right out on that front office printer as soon as it converts it. It'll get it ready and it'll just print it out. If I send it to the my queue, that means it's going to convert it and put it into that user's queue who submitted the job. If it comes from my email address, it knows that it's for this user and it's going to put it in that user's queue. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and just send it to the front office printer. Here I can set up the frequency. If it's your Exchange server or Google Apps or something like that, you can bump it up, make it a little lower. But if it's Gmail or Yahoo Mail or something like that, you might want to make it at least 30 seconds so that you don't get kicked out for checking too often. I think Google is 30 seconds. So here in the server section, I can select a specific type of account here. And what that'll do is it'll just auto-configure all the settings there. So if you don't remember what port Gmail is supposed to be and what the server is, just auto-configure it, and all that's doing is it's filling in all those fields. But even if you just do it yourself, it'll do the same thing. So the mailbox user here is print to Matt at Drivve.com. Not going to tell you the password. Our mail server is that. Same with the outgoing. Here you need to select the protocol and whether or not it's SSL. So we're going to check via IMAP here. You also need to set the port if it's different. And if there's a proxy, which I don't have right now, you would set that. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And it's going to check the mailbox right now. So actually what it's doing is it's checking print to Matt at Drivve.com. And there we go. It says successful, 0 messages in mailbox. So there's nothing there to be printed. So if I go to the options here, I have a couple things that I can select. I can make it secure mode, which means that I'm going to generate a pin with the job and send it with a pin. So for instance, if you're on a Sharp or I believe a Canon or a Kyocera, they support pin printing within the firmware. So if you have within that target, Sharp or Kyocera, whatever selected, we'll actually format that print job as though it came from the driver and as though it had a pin. Also, you can select anonymous mode, which means that any job that comes in, regardless of who it comes from, we're going to print it out. So maybe that's better for guest printing. I could also auto-create users. That's dependent on anonymous mode, but if I auto-create users, that means it's going to create a user if one doesn't already exist, and it'll use the email address for that user's username. And I also have always print body. If I want the body of the email always to be printed along with the attachment, I can enable that. Another option I have is to send replies. So if I want a confirmation to be sent back to that user, I can enable that. And obviously that's dependent on the SMTP service being on. Not service, but the port being correct here in the server. So right there, I have the mailbox going. If I go up to the mailbox logs, I can see that it's checking it every 5 seconds. It hasn't gotten a job. And like I said, you want to make sure that you're not doing that too often, because what will happen is it will block you out. So I'm going to, on my phone right here, get a job ready to print. But in the meantime, I'm going to tell you one thing that you can do that is a pretty common workflow for guest printing. And what you would do is you would set up a mailbox, and in that mailbox you would set it to be anonymous, and you would set it to auto-create users, and also you would send replies. And what we'll do there is we'll send a response back to the person who sent the email to us with a shortcode automatically created for them. And that shortcode can be sent as a pin to a specific printer, so that they'll need to go to the printer, enter their shortcode, and then they can see all of their jobs. And that can be done either with the Drive Print Pull Print app or with the firmware release of a specific printer. So I've submitted a job and I've sent it to print2matt@drive.com, and you'll see that right here I received the message. I see that it's a PNG. It has 3 parts. It's going to set that print job up, creates a job 8 for Matt Greco. If I go to pending jobs here, I don't see it. I see it actually right there. So that's the job that it just sent. It grabbed the PNG from the attachment. It was 1 page, and it printed it. And you see that it attributed it to the owner, which is Matt. And the reason it did that is because my user here, Matt, that I created, has my email address. And because I sent it from that email address, it accepted it. Had I sent the attachment or the email from my Gmail account or something, then it would have refused and it would not have printed it out. It would have discarded that email. And that's because I do not have anonymous mode on. But if I turn anonymous mode on, then it'll take a job from anywhere.